I now call to order this special session meeting of the City Council. Move into item A, open meeting. Announce if a quorum is present. Madam Secretary, quorum is present.
Yes.
Moving to item B, citizen comments. Any person who desires to address City Council regarding an item on the agenda will be heard at this time in compliance with the Texas Open Meetings Act. Unless the subject matter of the comment is on the agenda, the city staff and city council members are not allowed to discuss the subject. Each person is limited to 5 minutes for comments to City Council. I have one person desiring to speak for this particular citizen comment period, and that's Mark Malloy.
So is this recorded like the regular meeting? Is this going to be a video recording?
Yes, we're recording on YouTube. It's not streaming, but we are recording.
So when is my time start?
When you start speaking.
Like, can I start reading? I mean, can I, is it started now or, well then, okay, my name's Mark Malloy, 7803 Hamilton Circle, past City Council member of the City of Jersey Village, Texas. Citizens' comments for the 09/28/2020 special City Council meeting and public hearing on the city's property tax increase, and to hear citizens' comments on the city's 2020-2021 tax rate. Please make my verbal comments and documents given to the city secretary a permanent record of this meeting. The city charter, I believe, is written in a way that severely limits the taxpayers' ability to make decisions on if they, the taxpayers, want their city government to spend the city's tax revenue on extremely large projects that the citizens may not want the city government to do without the taxpayers being able to vote during an election to approve or not approve the city government spending the money. A current council member has said that if the city has the funds to do a project without needing to do a bond referendum, that they cannot ask the taxpayers to make the decision on an election ballot for their approval. The Jersey Village city government has in the past used certificates of obligation to not allow the taxpayers to make the decision if they, the taxpayers, wanted their city government to purchase a golf course for an estimated $7 million, which has now turned out to be costing the taxpayers many, many millions of dollars more because the golf course operational revenue does not pay all the costs involved to operate it. The total golf course principal and interest debt service payments that the taxpayers are paying on the golf course is $12,793,114. And the taxpayers was also paid at this time $4,583,919 on expenses that the golf course could not pay because it did not bring in enough operating revenue to do so. This totaled $17,337,033, and that is not including additional money that has been given to the golf course through other city funding sources. The golf course is an extremely taxpayer-subsidized money loser that also is a cause of flooding to the Jersey Village community. The city government has been told by their hired engineering firm back in 2003 to build a 111-foot above sea level flood control berm around the golf course to stop the golf course from flooding residential homes and other properties in the city of Jersey Village, Texas. But the city government has decided on their own to reduce the height of the berm by an estimated 4 feet. The city government, I believe, has intentionally set the tax rate higher than it needed to be for many years since the year 2006 to be able to accumulate for them an estimated $17.5 million to bypass the citizens' taxpayers from being allowed to vote on city government proposed projects during an election to decide if they, the taxpayers, want a new $8 million city hall constructed, if they want a city hall moved from its current location, if the citizens' taxpayers want the city government to spend $5 to $7 million on a golf course, clubhouse, convention center. The city government has already, without taxpayer approval, purchased 33.9 acres of land for $8.2 million in the city government's city center. The city of Jersey Village has one of the highest property tax rates in the state of Texas, and the city government has chose to not give the homeowners with a homestead exemption filed with Harris County, Texas, their state of Texas allowed 20% property tax exemption. The property tax increases to the property owners from the year 2010 to 2020 have totaled at least 25%, if not more. I'm asking that the City of Jersey Village, Texas government give the homeowners of Jersey Village, Texas the full 20% state of Texas allowed homestead property tax exemption, and the additional 65-year and older homeowners the same $160,000 property tax exemption that Harris County, Texas and the City of Houston is giving their citizens. I believe that the Jersey Village taxpayers should be given the right to vote on extremely large expenditures of city revenue, not just 5 appointed or elected individuals. Thank you.
Yep. Thank you, Mark. It's going to move us into item C, conduct public hearing on proposed tax rate increase. I now call to order this public hearing on tax rate increase. Everyone desiring to speak at this hearing should complete a public hearing comment card and present the card to the city secretary. The purpose of the public hearing is to give all interested persons the right to express support for or opposition to the proposed tax rate of 0.723466 per $100, a rate that exceeds the lower of the voter approval rate or the no new revenue rate. I would now like to request the City Finance Director, Isabel Cato, to summarize the subject of this public hearing.
Good evening. I would like to present the City of Jersey Village property tax rate for the year 2021.
Push them all, one of them's gotta work.
Here's the history of the property value since 2014 to now. From 2019 to 2020, the values went up a little bit, and the decrease in 2019 probably was due to because we increased our exemptions. Those are the numbers of the assessed value since 2014 to 2020. And here are the rates that we are proposing. The current rate right now is 0.7425. According to our calculation, the non-new revenue rate is 68.9616, and the board approval and proposed rate is 0.723466. Here's the definition of the non-new revenue rate. The non-new revenue rate was the same thing that we had before, and this is what the non-new revenue rate is. It generates equal the same amount of money from last year's taxes, not including the new constructions and the new properties on the tax roll this year. The voter approval tax rate is the same as the rollback tax rate. We used to call it rollback tax rate. And it changed a little bit from last year. From the rollback tax rate is the voter approval tax rate that provides cities and counties with about the same amount of tax revenue from from previous year, plus an extra 3.5% for operations and sufficient funds to pay debts in the coming year. Here is the breakdown of our tax rate, the debt service rate, and the maintenance and operation rate, comparing from last year to this year. As you can see, since our last year tax rate was 0.7425, we went down to the voter approvals rate of 0.723466, so we went down by over a penny. Here is the breakdown of the amount of money that we will collect extra From last year to this year, the total will be like 262,000. When you compare, and this is the amount, the $6.3 million is the amount that we have in our calculation this year. So the increase for the M&O is 204,000, that equals to like 3.2%, 3.24%. Here is the definition of the operation and maintenance rate. With the M&O, we pay salary, supplies, and day-to-day operation. Debt service, we have to pay the interest and principal of on bonds. Here, the historical of tax rates since 2013, and we had 0.7425. This year, we went down to 0.723466. Here are the two debt service payments that we have for this year, for next year. General obligation 2016, we will pay $486,350 with interest and principal and interest, and for the 2012, $1,031,975. And here is the total debt service for our total debt service, which is a total of $10,860,675. 6.9 is for the 2016 general obligation and 3.9 for the 2012. And that concludes my presentation, if anybody has a question.
Any council members have questions for Isabel? All right. I'm going to have two people signed up to speak at this public hearing. First is Michael Stembridge.
Good evening, everyone. Michael Stembridge. My wife would have been here, but she's just trying to distance, and she just told me to go. We don't support the tax increase. It's a lot of bills already: flood insurance, property insurance, taxes, school taxes, and we just can't afford it. It's just, and we've been asking for an elevation for 4 years, which is another issue, but haven't, and some people have gotten them. And we kind of don't support a big city hall and everything, because we are flooders and we do have to evacuate. And if you weren't here, we do evacuate here to City Hall. And when this is gone, are they going to evacuate us under the bridge? This could become a mortality issue. And the E-127 is going to run from the village center down into, I don't know if it goes down into the bayou, but our bayou is already high enough. Now, I know there is going to be work on the bayou to repair it, but that adds more water into that situation. And I'm supposing that there are protocols where you can't release so much water where it does flood somebody downstream, but we sure hope so. I just came here to amicably say, Anna wanted me to, that we can't afford any more expenditure. And I'm going to leave it at that. Thank you.
Thank you, Mike. Mark Malloy.
Okay, I'm back to talk about the city not giving the homeowners that have a homestead exemption their full 20% state allowed property tax exemption. And basically, I'm just kind of wanting to find out why the city government has taken and decided to give city employees pay raises for this year, because there's a lot of people, like 30% of the population, I think, or 30 million people that have been laid off from their jobs. So I don't know why the city government thinks that with these kinds of things going on in the United States, that we should be giving pay raises this year. And so the other thing is I've been talking about the city planning on doing these major expensive projects. And I feel that the taxpayers should be able to have a say in that, not just that they elected the city officials, that they should be able to vote on a election ballot during a normal election to make a decision on if the city is going to spend that amount of money. And basically, basically what I feel is that you guys have taken and accumulated large amounts of money, which has now allowed you to take and do these projects without letting the citizens vote to approve it. And basically, I've heard one council member say that the way the charter is written, that if the city has the revenue to do the project, that they are not allowed to take and let the citizens vote to approve the project because of the way the charter's written. So I think that the charter needs to be changed to let citizens vote on very expensive projects that the city wants to do. And that means the city hall, and that means the golf course clubhouse convention center, because the number that I read off previously that I said that the taxpayers are paid $17 million something for the golf course because it has not generated the revenue to pay those costs. And then the city plans on spending another $5 to $7 million on a golf course clubhouse convention center. So I don't see how you guys think that is a good use of the citizens' money. So anyway, that's about all I had to say about that. Thank you.
Thank you, Mark. There being no one else desiring to speak, I now close the public hearing on tax rate increase. Move us into item D. Discuss and consider approval of a motion to set the tax rate for debt service for tax year 2020. Any discussion on the topic?
No, Mr. Mayor, I think it's important, just very briefly, before we begin, based on the way the state requires us to report the calculation of the tax rate, it winds up being a calculation that calls it a tax raise. Keeping in mind that that's in the aggregate. As Isabel pointed out, that it would result in, even though we're reducing the overall property tax rate, it does result, because of the aggregate valuation of properties, in an increase of about $262,000 in revenue. I'm not saying that that's a small amount of money, but in terms of the nearly $8 million in revenue that it raises, it is a fairly low percentage. It's a few percentage points. That being said, that figure is the aggregate. And so, for example, when Mr. Stembridge stood up and he said, we can't afford for our property taxes to be increased. And I'm certainly not broadcasting any personal information about Mr. Stembridge's, but Mike, your property taxes not only are not going up, they're going down over the prior year. I just looked it up to be sure, because I wanted to make sure that that was the case. And I bring that up only to point out that for a lot of people out there, you may see your property taxes go down. If your valuation doesn't change, your property taxes are going down by a few percentage points. If your valuation is going up, which could happen for any number of reasons, it could be because maybe there have been sales in your area that have gone up, which I think everyone can agree that having property values go up is a good thing. But maybe it's because you did a remodel in your home. That's going to cause your property taxes to go up if there's not enough of a change in the rate to offset it. So we try to do the best we can to try to moderate things in the aggregate to keep any increases as low as possible. And certainly last year we increased the homestead exemption and all the exemptions across the board, homestead, disabled, and over 65, to reduce them to the point where, even though there is a very moderate increase in revenue from property taxes, it's still way lower than it was 2 years ago. In fact, I think you would have to go back about 5 years before you would find a property tax situation that was better than even what we're proposing today. So I'm not going to repeat all the things that we discussed last week about the circumstances and some of the restrictions we have on when we can make decisions regarding homestead exemption. We wish they weren't that way, but all of the uncertainty with the pandemic has made it a little bit more difficult, and I will be extremely glad if by next May or June we're in a much more stable situation where we can be more certain about addressing property tax cuts.
So at Echo, and to keep things short, just in the total revenue increase, we're very, very modestly outpacing inflation. There's very little increase.
I echo both of what you said. Our tax rate, by the way, went down 2.5%. And Isabel, correct me if I'm wrong, but Jersey Village as a city and an entity does not come up with a property value assessment on anyone's house. That's solely at the discretion of the Harris County Appraisal District. Is that right? And we don't get input into that? No, so that jump of 6.6% is out of our control. And I think I've heard another council member suggest, and I concur, that if you feel your house is overvalued compared to the market or compared to your neighbor, unequally appraised, you should go and protest that. And they have rules about that, and those get mailed out in May, and I would encourage anyone to do the same. I would also like to second Bobby in saying if next year we're COVID free, and I'd like to investigate increasing the exemption more. We said a lot about that last week, but we lowered the tax rate. Despite what the state of Texas is making us say, we lowered the tax rate, and so.
Let's make a quick comment. We talk about tax rates and increase in revenue, but we seldom address the expenses. We pay employees because we need to pay employees. We pay employees because we want good employees. We want retention. We want that when we made a commitment to invest in our employees, and it has paid dividends. If you look at the amount of grants we have, if you look at the efficiency of our employees above other communities, we're far more efficient. So there is value to raises, there's value to employees, whether people see it or not. So that's the other part is that health insurance goes up. Employees are 60, 70% of our revenue. Of our expenses. I forgot what it is. It's an investment. Employees are an investment, just like the golf course, just like a fire truck, just like everything else, and you have to spend money. Our expenses are not going down. So if you have a modest 3% increase in revenue, it is far more offset by the increase in cost. And we're lucky to have the reserves we have to weather the circumstances related to COVID or anything else. The city is managed fiscally better than any city in Texas, I would presume. We have suffered no ill effects from any of the natural disasters that we've suffered over the last few years. Anyways, that's just my general.
Don't think I can put it any better than Greg, and I won't even try. With that, I'm looking for a motion on item D.
I move to approve setting the debt service tax rate of $0.132072 per $100 value for the year 2020.
I have a motion and a second. Any more discussion on the topic? Seeing none, all those in favor? Any opposed? Any abstentions? Motion carries. The roll call vote's the final. Item F. Move us into item E, discuss and consider approval of a motion to set the tax rate for maintenance and operation for tax year 2020.
Go over the motion.
Yep, go ahead with the motion, please.
To approve setting I move to approve setting the maintenance and operation tax rate of 0.591394 per $100 value for the year 2020.
Second.
I have a motion and a second. Any more discussion on the topic? Seeing none, all those in favor? Any opposed? Any abstentions? Motion carries. All right, moving to item F. Consider ordinance number 2020-23, providing for the levy and collection of ad valorem taxes by the city of Jersey Village, Texas for the year 2020. Any discussion on the topic? One moment, I'm going to go bring up my script. Okay, I'm looking for a motion that must be read as follows: to approve ordinance number 2020-23, providing for the levy and collection of ad valorem taxes by the city of Jersey Village, Texas for the year 2020, providing for the date on which such taxes shall be due and payable, and providing for penalty and interest on all taxes not timely paid. I further move that the property taxes be increased by the adoption of a tax rate of 0.723466, which is effectively a 4.91% increase in the tax rate.
I'll move the property tax rate be increased by the adoption of a tax rate of 0.723466, which is effectively a 4.91% increase in the tax rate.
I think it had to be fully read.
I got it from you, Mayor.
Got it from me? Okay. All right. Look for a second.
Second.
All right. I have a motion and a second. Any more discussion on the topic? Seeing none, I will now call upon each council member by name to take the record vote. Once your name is called, answer aye to signify your approval of the motion, or nay to signify your disapproval. Councilmember Wasson, state your vote.
Aye.
Councilmember Holden, state your vote.
Aye.
Councilmember Warren, state your vote.
Aye.
Councilmember Singleton, state your vote.
Aye.
Councilmember Wobenhorst, state your vote.
Aye.
Motion carried. And move on to the next item, which is adjournment. See everybody next time. Thank you.